Hey, Whippersnappers, this is Tortimer the Great. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Pokemon Showdown Gray version. This week we take on the second member of the Elite Four and their trainer Acolytes, and they are steel-powered over here as good old Codeman with his 3 Pokemon team starts us off today as his Heatran, I wanted to say Metagross, I don't know why, but Heatran goes down, and Eve, my Mega Kangaskhan, goes up against the Aegislash here, which we saw a lot of Aegislashes this week, a lot of the same Pokemon, but again, I mean, there are some pretty good Steel-type Pokemon, so it makes sense that a lot of these kinds of Pokemon made appearances. You guys will notice that I did switch up my team slightly. Somebody asked me in the comments last week, whether or not my team was going to change throughout the course of the Elite Four, because I generally have taken liberties in changing my team, you know, between weeks and everything like that. Obviously, changing things up between the Elite Four doesn't make a ton of sense, because obviously it's supposed to be continuous battles. Maybe in this region, that's not how it works out. But you'll see there on the screen, Theoden, my own Aegislash, I added to the team. I didn't want to, like, okay, well, it's a Steel-type week, I'm going to bring Mega Blaziken or something. Like, I didn't really want to, like, bring something that I thought would be too OP, but Greninja just wasn't working for me, and so I decided to switch out Greninja. Nobody else really got tweaked, but I did bring Theoden, switched Greninja out for Theoden. I won't make any tweaks unless, my team seemed to work out pretty well this week, so I won't make any tweaks unless it seems necessary. But anyway, we gotta move on to the next battle. Thank you so much for your participation this week, Codeman. I greatly appreciate it. Always adding that spice of life to the series. Let's jump into the next one, shall we? Here we go. Alrighty guys, here we go, battle number 2 up against Elite Four trainer, Nurion, and Nurion leads off with Mega Mawile there, and as I leave off with my Mega Kangaskhan, we do a reasonable damage to the Mawile. In fact, we finish the Mawile off before it's able to do anything, so Eve doing some good work there. But yeah, so just finishing off what I was saying there, I don't intend to switch up my team every week. Once I find something that I think works, which I think this week it worked pretty well, even though like we didn't have anything super great against Steel, and it was a kind of bloody week, as you guys are going to see. We had several hard losses this week, but I think in terms of just overall team balance in general, I think this team works out pretty well, so probably not going to make any changes, especially not like, oh, well, you know, I could switch somebody out to be good against whatever this coming week's type is. Like, that's not really going to be the point this week, because we're in the Elite Four. So, to keep it more or less copacetic there, like, I even brought Navi, who's a Fairy type, into the Steel type Elite Four, right? So, I mean, I'm trying to be as fair as possible, but Nurion has Steel-type Arceus out here up against Theoden, as Theoden throws up the Sacred Sword. Arceus is up in the air and lands that fly, which doesn't do a whole lot to Theoden, and then Theoden lands that Sacred Sword, which doesn't do a ton of damage either, really, necessarily, to Arceus, as Theoden throws up the Sacred Sword, and then the Shadow Sneak. I'm not sure why I didn't go for... Oh, I think I was expecting probably another fly there, and I didn't want to waste a turn on Sacred Sword, so I wanted to get a little damage in before he flew up in the air. Finally finished off the Arceus there, so Theoden's gonna come out, bring in Shendu. Shendu's gonna avoid the Blaze Kick and then throw up the V-Create, which no light screen can save Genesect from. 4 times weak, super powerful move from a legendary. You're gonna die. Same with Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn goes down despite being behind the light screen there, which just leaves Nurion with Dialga, who is pretty close to death to begin with anyway, so Shendu is just going to extreme speed and finish him off. So thank you so much for participating this week, Nurion. I greatly appreciate you've been... I'd have to go back and check, but I feel like you've been with us pretty much since the very beginning of this series, doing these battles with us, so I appreciate it greatly. And yeah, we got a lot to get through today, so we're going to jump into the next one. But again, thank you, Nurion. I appreciated the battle and had a lot of fun going up against your team. Here we go. Alright, and now we're going up against Elite Four trainer GBL4 Turtles and/or Shunosaurus, as he leads off with his Ferrothorn. Yeah. I got lucky and didn't Mega Evolve against their Ferrothorn, because if you Mega Evolve and attack a Ferrothorn, which I find out later on in this episode, so the Fake Out does basically nothing to begin with, but then it also, you get hit by Barbs and Rocky Helmet twice, because you have the 2 hits. So Youch. So thankfully I forgot to Mega Evolve on the first turn here against Shunosaurus. Blackavar is immune to the Thunderbolt and able to throw up that Sucker Punch, which is going to get rid of the balloon, so that works out pretty nicely. Unfortunately, the Flash Cannon lands and finishes off Blackavar, no trouble at all. So Eve comes back in and is gonna, now the balloon is gone, words, is gonna throw up that Earthquake and finish off the Magnezone. Bisharp comes in, throwing up the Sucker Punch, but Fumesy switches in instead, so it doesn't do a whole lot. Fumesy takes that knockoff like a champ and is gonna throw up the Will-O-Wisp here against the Bisharp. Does anybody notice that they changed up the battle animations? Did I mention this last week? I think I was talking about it this week with somebody during a battle or something, but yeah, I feel like they changed up the battle animations. Some of them are definitely new. If Fumesy's going to take a hard Iron Head from the Excadrill, but it's going to throw up that Pain Split, which is going to get us some decent health back. The Rock Slide does damage, and unfortunately Fumesy flinches, so he's going to take another hard Iron Head, but he's going to survive long enough to throw up a little bit of a Flamethrower there, not enough to kill the Excadrill, but gets it nice and low. So Theoden can switch in here, and I believe we're just going to go for the oh no, we go for the King Shield, hoping to get just some free damage off there while protecting, but the Earthquake isn't actually a physical... It's a physical move, but it's not a physical contact move, so you don't actually take damage from King Shield. Theoden finishes off the Shadow Sneak there, takes down the Excadrill, then Mega Scizor comes in, throws up that knockoff there. Shendu is going to take a hard knockoff and then Bullet Punch and go down to the Scizor, at which point Eve comes in, taking damage from rocks and spikes. Throws up that Fake Out, which obviously Aegislash is going to be immune to. Scizor then is going to switch in to an Earthquake, which Spike Parental Bond is going to do basically nothing. And then we go for the Sucker Punch, just hoping to get some damage off before the inevitable defeat of our own Mega there. Theoden then switches in, going to throw up that King Shield there, hoping for... the knockoff or something. We get the Bullet Punch, which halves the attack of the Mega Scizor, so that works out pretty nicely. And then Theoden's going to follow up with a Night Slash, which finishes off the Scizor. At which point they bring in their own Aegislash. We throw up the Shadow Sneak there as the stat change comes, and then the Shadow Ball going to finish off Theoden there, leaving us just with Navi. And Navi is going to take some damage on the switch in, and then is going to take a hard Flash Cannon. We throw up the Hyper Voice, but just not enough. Just not enough, and Aegislash is going to finish off with the Flash Cannon here. So, the first of our losses yet this week. Very, very close on a lot of our battles. Some of our battles not quite as close, but I really appreciate the challenge that you guys... I mean, even losing a battle like this is so fun for me. I mean, win or lose is not really an issue for me. If we come down to the last two Pokemon on the field, that's a fun battle for me. I don't like losing like 1-6 or something, but there's no shame in. So thank you so much for the battle, Shunosaurus. I appreciate it so much. Alright guys, again, we got a lot to get through. You guys turned out this week like crazy. So, let's jump into the next one, shall we? Thanks again, Shunosaurus. Here we go. Alrighty guys, here we go up against Elite Four Trainer, Arctic Animal, and Mac starts off with Genesect here. Eve is my lead, obviously, there, so she gets her Parental Bond Fake Out going, which does decent damage, and then the Earthquake gets Genesect almost into kill range. Eve's going to take a hard Technoblast and Extreme Speed, but going to be able to stick around long enough to finish off the Genesect, so that works out nicely. At which point Shendu is going to switch out in favor of because of the Blaziken that switches in, I guess, words. Throws up the Protects there. I throw up the Extreme Speed. I think at this point I'm going to switch over to Dragon Ascent, which obviously is a flying attack, which super effective, finishes off Blaziken. Really don't want that thing setting up a whole lot, so we get it dead pretty quickly there. At which point Shendu's going to switch out. I'm expecting maybe a Draco Meteor or Meteor Mash or something from the Dialga, so I switch into Navi. Takes that Ice Beam, but then the Flash Cannon's going to finish off Navi no problem. At which point Eve comes in. Earthquake was my saving grace in this week. Basically the whole week, because Eve being able to get Parental Bond Earthquake going, Earthquake being super effective against the Steel types, that worked out pretty nicely for us. The Sucker Punch fails, obviously, due to the switch, but Blackavar able to throw up that Earth Power and finish off the Doublade, so that works out pretty nicely, at which point Mega Lucario comes in and gets one-shotted, not even critted, just one-shotted by Blackavar, so it's good to see my, UU tier starter still doing some work in the Ubers tier. I mean, I know it's not the real Ubers tier, but it's still fun for me to see. So just give me this moment. Come on. But Blackavar doing some good work against Mac. It took me a little while to realize Mac had both Aegis Slash and Doublade on his team, and Blackavar able to finish off the final Aegis Slash there with a Sucker Punch. So thank you so much, Mac, for participating this week. You had a fun little team there, some nice variation and things like that, so that was very cool. Thank you so much for participating. Let's jump into the next one, shall we? Here we go. Alrighty guys, here we go up against Elite Four trainer Nougat, leading off with a Glue Stick, the Bisharp, switching immediately out into the Ferrothorn. Unfortunately, this is my first exposure to the, 4-hit, does basically over half damage just from contacting with Ferrothorn there with a physical move, so yikes. You'd think I'd learned my lesson, but I do it at least one more time this week, unfortunately. So, Fumes, he's going to switch in, and Latias is going to take a burn. Getting leech seeded, so decided to switch out, bring in Navi, expecting that Navi can pretty well handle whatever Latias might throw up there. So Latias, obviously recognizing that, switches out. I threw up the Hyper Voice, which is going to do barely any damage, but it's at least going to get rid of the balloon there, so Blackavar is going to be able to come in. The Stealth Rock's going to land, and Blackavar is going to throw up the Earth Power, which obviously the Latias is immune to due to Levitate. Blackavar is going to throw up that Sucker Punch there, which is unfortunately not going to do anything due to the Recover, which... yeah, so Blackavar switches out. Theoden is then going to come in. That Psychic going to do barely anything, which works out fairly nicely. And Theoden is going to be able to throw up the, I think Night Slash is what I went for. Yeah, up against Broom. So we see Broom showing up here again on one of Nougat's teams, so that works out pretty nicely. Throwing up that King Shield, which obviously, again, not a contact-related move, so we don't get the half attack power thing from that. But Theoden is going to throw up that Sacred Sword, which doesn't do much to Mr. Jeffley, but as Mr. Jeffley Mega Evolves and throws up the Agility, we're able to throw up the Night Slash, which is, again, not going to do a ton, but going to do enough that we're going to be able to get Mr. Jeffley down a little bit. And then he's going to have to switch out because he realizes, oh, Shadow Sneak or something, and I'm dead here. Unfortunately, Theoden's going to take an Earthquake at this point from Broom and go out. So Eve's going to switch in, then at that point, Ferrothorn comes back in. We throw up the Sucker Punch there, and then Eve's going to switch out in favor of Shendu. Unfortunately, we get some spikes set up there, and Shendu's going to throw the V-Create up at the Latias, which is obviously going to be resisted due to the Dragon typing, and so we don't get a ton off there, but unfortunately they do with the Draco Meteor, which is going to finish off Shendu. Get some leftovers back, get burned, and then Navi comes back in. So we've got Fairy against Dragon once again. Avoid the Toxic and throw up the Hyper Voice, finishing off the Latios finally. So now our levitating foes are gone. Navi survives the Hyper Voice, able to do a slight little damage up against the Heatran before going down there. Blackavar at that point comes in and going to throw up the Earth Power. Without the levitating Latias, we can pretty well expect that Earth Power and Earthquake are going to do decent damage. So start throwing those things up. Throw up the Sucker Punch, not trusting that I can outspeed the Excadrill. Able to land that, not enough to kill, unfortunately, though, so Blackavar is going to go down. Fumesy then goes down thanks to Mold Breaker on Broom. No Pokemon is safe. And then Eve comes in, going to throw up the Sucker Punch there, hoping to finish off, and then we're going to be able to land the Earthquake, although unfortunately up against this Ferrothorn doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and Nougat finishes off pretty easily. So Ripperhurry said some of them were pretty close and some of them were not. 4-0 there. Nougat kicked our butt. So thank you, Nougat, for coming at us with such a team this week to finish us off. But yeah, I mean, it happens, and I'm not a super strong battler myself, so sometimes you guys get the better of me. It happens several times this week, so I don't find any shame in it, but definitely got my butt handed to me here. So thank you so much, Nougat, for participating this week. I appreciate the challenge as always. Let's check out what the rest of you guys have in store, shall we? Here we go. Alrighty guys, here we go up against the Espresso Cat, and ECat leads off with his Drillbur, which Eve is going to fake out there, get a little bit of damage going. and then Eve outspeeds and throws up the Earthquake, which finishes off Drilver no problem. At which point, ECAT switches in the Ballooned and Fairy-type Steel Key Pokemon. I don't know what any of these names are. I'm sure they're brilliant, but I don't know what any of them are this week. I think most of his went over my head. I guess Dave Grohl, I know, he plays guitar or something, right? But beyond that, maybe they're all musicians or something. I don't know. But Shendu's going to be able to V-create the Scizor there and finish off. At which point the Mega Mawile comes in and going to get V-created as well, going down in one hit. Mega Mawiles didn't stand up really well this week, unfortunately, which is sad because Mawile's one of my favorite Pokemon, and so kind of sad to see that happen. Gets the Destiny Bond set up there, and that scares me a little bit, but we're able to avoid killing in that turn, and the Earthquake finishes it off next turn before he can set up another one and trick us into it, so that works out pretty well. We don't have to fall sucker to that. At which point, speaking of Sucker Punch, we're just trying to Sucker Punch the Magnezone here a little bit, to get rid of the balloon without wasting a move or something, but that didn't happen, so Blackvar's got to come in with the Ice Beam to finish off the Magnezone there. The Hidden Power almost gets rid of Blackvar, but he hangs on long enough to get the Earth Power going and shows his weight once again. We had a couple of Pokemon remaining there. I think Eve was the only one we lost that time, but nice to see our starter doing some work, even this high up in the tiers, so that was exciting. But thank you so much, ECAT, for your continued support and for putting together a cool team. Didn't see some Pokemon like Klefki and stuff like that much the rest of the week. So always cool to see, even if you guys have pretty similar parameters, to see what kind of teams you guys put together. That was awesome. So thanks so much again, ECAT. Let's figure out what the last two battles of today have in store for us. Here we go. Alrighty, guys. Second, I guess technically the last Elite Four trainer battle for today. We go up against Scad, and once again I make the fatal mistake of fake outing a Ferrothorn. Does over half damage to Eve, which is very disappointing, but that's just kind of how it works. Fumzy at this point going to switch in and attempt to Flamethrower Spike in the face, but Spike switches out, and Kaiju, the Tyranitar, switches into it. This Kaiju, man, annoying. Scad knows how to make annoying Pokemon. That's kind of her specialty, and so, yeah, that thing just kind of perfect counter for anything I wanted to do against some of these Steel-type Pokemon, which, I mean, makes sense. If you're going to bring an Off-type Pokemon, it might as well have resistance coverage against, you know, the types that you're weak against. That just makes perfect sense, so, you know, more power to her. But Blackavar switches in, full round of hazards at his feet. The Spike protects and is going to switch out before any real damage is able to be done, as we Earth Power Jafar, the floating stupid genie thing, and then get Earth Powered back, and Blackavar goes down. Theoden then switches into hazards and takes a hard Earth Power, surprisingly living long enough to throw up a Night Slash, and then I believe it's, yeah, Shadow Sneak there. Whenever I know I'm dead, I just go priority, no matter whether it's the better move or not. And so we're able to do a little bit of damage to Jafar there before he switches out, bringing Kaiju back in. Shendu at that point throws at V-Create, and again, not very effective, so even something that powerful from that powerful of a Pokemon, we don't really have anything on Shendu that can do even neutral damage against Kaiju, so Shendu's going to go down to that Stone Edge. Navi's going to come back in, throw up that Hyper Voice against Spike, whittling away at least a little bit at the stupid Ferrothorn there, doing decent damage, the critical hit being nice, and then I believe he protects here, which gets him, is going to get him back above, I believe 40% damage, which is what we had done with Hyper Voice before, so even if he'd stayed in, it probably wouldn't have killed there. Cobalt comes in and is believed going to throw up the Bullet Punch there, yeah, to finish off Navi, at which point Eve switches in, taking hard damage from those hazards, and then but Kaiju's going to switch in. We just go for the Earthquake. I'm not even playing around at this point. Getting the stupid Kaiju off the field. We're down to our last two Pokemon, so can't really screw around at this point, especially with Sandstorm on the field taking damage, and Eve eventually going down to that. So we're left with Fumzy, our Weezing in the Uber tier, and able to throw up the Flamethrower here, get a little bit back from our Black Sludge. The knockoff does decent damage with the crit there, and then Fumzy's going to be able to finish off the Landorus with a Sludge Bomb there, at which point Rufus? I don't know, something. Drillbur switches in, we get the pain split off, and the sand ends. Thankfully, Scad had set this up as a sand team, so Rufus is not carrying Mold Breaker, so it can't hit Fumesy with the super effective Earthquake, which leaves Fumesy enough time to be able to chip away at it and get him down. At which point they bring in Glamdring, and I'm able to set up the Pain Split again, get ourselves a little bit of health back. Unfortunately, we got our Black Sludge knocked off, so we're not going to get any heals going here, but Fumesy able to get a little bit back at least from its over HP'd opponents. We get the burn going to help us out a little bit in staying alive and get us a little bit of damage there to at least offset the leftovers that Glamdring is running. Throw up the Pain Split, get a tiny bit of HP back there. And Scad at this point worries that she's gonna lose, and I'm like, I messed up better positions, don't worry about it. And so Fumesy, although he's gonna be able to finish off the Glamdring there, Spike comes in and throws up the Protect, although it doesn't do, there's no point in doing that, essentially. The sand, and there's no healing items on either Pokemon, so there's no point in that, but so we're able to finish off Fumesy, or Ferrothorn, and be up to our one-on-one there. So from Scad, I think I didn't defeat Scad's first Pokemon until I was down to my second to last Pokemon, and then Fumesy swept through the rest of the team until we got to the Metagross, which Scad was worried about because she said she hadn't put a Psychic move on it. But I figured that as low as Fumesy was without the Black Sludge, she was probably going to be able to get through his defenses eventually anyway, as she did there with that Meteor Mash. So she was worried she was going to lose there for a second. I was excited thinking about the possibility of Fumesy making a total sweep comeback because he's a Weezing, and I just think it's hilarious whenever he's able to do that. But Scad was able to pull it out there for a very close, although the battle itself wasn't very close until the very end there, a very close ending, which was fun to watch. So she had to pull up the Mega to defeat my Weezing. Just want to put that out there. But yeah, alrighty. Thank you so much, Scad, for participating. So glad to have you back. I know you had to take a hiatus for life, but it's always nice to have you around kicking my butt in these series and other instances. So thank you so much for being around and coming on back to the series here towards the end. Anyway, guys, we got one final battle today, our Elite Four leader. So let's check it out, shall we? Here we go. Alrighty, guys, final battle for today up against Elite Four leader David Kahn, and leading off with his Lucario there. Lucario is going to get Fake Out and then flinched, allowing me to switch into Theoden there to avoid the Aura Sphere that I figured was coming, or the fighting move of some sort that I figured was coming. Able to avoid that due to immunity, and then get the King Shield up in order to get the half attack up on Lucario. Unfortunately, Theoden throws up Gyro Ball, but not able to do really anything to Lucario, so I'm going to switch out there, and Fumesy's going to switch in to handle Lucario here. Half attack generally leaves Fumesy in a decent position there, so even though Fumesy's got the burn, he's going to be able to finish off through Lucario there, so that works out pretty nicely. We've got the Black Sludge there, giving us a little bit of health back, and the Psycho Cut's going to finish us off before the Pain Split can land, getting Fumesy some health. Shendu then switches in. They bring in Julius, who's going to take that V-Create like a champ. Water typing, saving it there. Shendu then switches out, bringing Navi into the field. Navi is going to go up against Shogun, who's going to get one-shotted by the Hyper Voice there. So, unfortunately, a bad switch there for the Elite Four leader, but Fiskars is going to come in, throw up that Bullet Punch up against Theoden, and then we're going to throw up the King Shield as the Bug Buzz comes. So I'm not going to get that half attack bonus there, but Shendu is going to switch in, expecting the resistance to be able to help us, which it obviously does there a little bit. And then they're going to switch into Ronald, their Aggron, and the V-Create does half damage there. And then they Mega Evolve, which might have been, I mean, at that point it didn't really matter. I guess one more V-Create was going to end it anyway, but they lose the Rock typing, which resisted the fire, and became full-on Steel. So Shendu able to handle that without too much trouble. And then their Aegislash comes in and goes down to our starter, as does Fiskar, taking a hard a hard Earth Power there, and Blackavar taking a couple of hits before able to set up another one due to the speed differential, and gonna go down and sucker punching the Empoleon there to finish off the battle for us. So Blackavar bringing in the win against our second Elite Four leader of the series. Steel types, man, it was a fun week. Got my butt kicked quite a number of times, but still mostly good battles, so I enjoyed it. We got to figure out what we're doing next week, but thank you so much, David Kahn, for coming back week after week. You joined us a little later in the game, but you've been pretty consistent for many weeks now, so I appreciate your support and for putting together an awesome team. Again, it's always cool for me to see the different Pokemon. I think you, David Kahn, was probably the only one who you brought in Empoleon or Mega Aggron or some of these other Pokemon as well, so just cool to see, given the same parameters, what you guys come up with. That's fun for me. So thank you again. Let's jump into the spreadsheet, see what we're doing this coming week. Here we go. Alrighty, guys, this should be a quick little round here as we figure out what we're doing next week, because basically all we have to determine is the type that we're going to be fighting next week. So we've got Fighting, Poison, Ground, Flying, Rock, Ghost, Dragon, and Dark remaining, and only 2 more slots in the Elite Four. So let's give it a shot here and see how this goes out. So we're going to basically randomize from 7 to 16 and just hope that 11 and 12 don't show up. And if they do, we'll re-roll. But 7 to 16 generate gives us 8. Poison. Poison is the type that comes up for this week, so probably not what you guys were hoping for coming into the Elite Four. I know I heard a lot of hopes for Dragon type to pop up or maybe something else, but nope. Poison types. So there you go. There you go. Let me go ahead and highlight that. So the RNG gods have spoken. Poison type is the third Elite Four type. So we have grass types, steel types, and poison types. Definitely probably one of the most colorful of the bunch that we've had probably in the games. But yeah, so poison types. So put together your best Uber poison types teams this week. And I'll see you guys out there on the battlefield. So starting tomorrow morning, I'll see you guys out there. Thank you guys so much again for participating. If you haven't participated in the past, but you've been watching the series and are interested in doing so, jump on Pokemon Showdown. It's a free online battle simulator that gives you free access. You don't have to register. You don't have to download anything. You just jump on and make a team and go. You can even, if you're not comfortable making a team, go to Smogon and it gives you team building information you can copy and paste directly into Showdown in order to create Pokemon and things for that. So it could not be easier for you guys to participate in this series. So I look forward to seeing you guys all out there. All of the details for how to get to Showdown and or to find me once you get there, and the dates and times and things like that I will be available are included in the description down below. So check that out. If you have any questions after reading all that, feel free to comment and ask, and I'll do my best to get you all up and running. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Tortimer the Grain. You guys have been great. Make sure to those likes, comments, subscriptions for me, guys, and I'll see you all out there with your poison type Uber Elite Four teams starting this week. Alrighty, guys, have a good one.